As I noted, we have had and we will continue to have as much fun as possible with the on-camera meltdown of Andrew Breitbart in front of a group of Occupy protesters at CPAC last weekend. But in our number one story in the countdown, the subject of rape is no laughing matter. The allegation that a political or cultural group condones or encourages rape and sexual assault against anyone is virtually as serious a charge as can be leveled. Yet nearly just as bad is to fabricate, twist, and alter facts to make it seem like such a charge against such a group has any credence at all. Mr. Breitbart and his websites have now promulgated a list of what his people boast are 17 rapes at Occupy protests between October 16th and November 19th of last year. 17 stories and links listed rapes and various sexual crimes, and all of them attributed to Occupy. It turns out Breitbart and his people have padded this list. They have listed some stories twice. In nearly every case, Breitbart's crew has twisted nearly every one of the allegations in the stories. The idea seems to have been to make as long a list as possible and assume that your supporters will never bother to link through to the actual stories, let alone follow up to find their true outcomes. Those who do will find Mr. Breitbart and his colleagues are lying. Story number one, Madison, Wisconsin. Turns out this is the story of Occupy Madison losing its permit for a couple of days, in part because of a charge that somebody was masturbating in public. No charges, no names, no evidence, and even the head of the local business association which brought the complaint, one Mary Carbine, was emphatic that the behavior was, quote, not necessarily by the protesters themselves. Number two, Cleveland refers to an alleged assault of a member of Occupy Cleveland. No arrests, and the police offer no indication that the alleged assailant was a member of Occupy. Number three, Seattle. Turns out to be the arrest of a man for indecent exposure in schoolyards and other parks, not at Occupy Seattle. Detectives say they were told the suspect had been seen at Occupy, and again, they make no claim he was associated with Occupy. Number four, Cleveland. This is the same story as number two. It's listed twice, but this time there was a Fox News video linked as well. Number five, Dallas. An alleged assault victim told police the sex in question was consensual. She would not press charges nor cooperate with authorities, and the claim that there was an assault in the first place originated with one local TV station's anonymous source in the Dallas Police Department. Number six, Portland, Oregon. The registered address that a sex offender gave authorities turned out to be the same address as the Occupy Portland camp. The police have no evidence he was ever there, nor do any witnesses place him there. Number seven, Lawrence, Kansas. A local police captain named Jim Martin is quoted in the Breitbart linked story as saying, someone who had been at the Occupy Lawrence camp reported on Monday morning a possible sexual assault. Martin said he did not believe the victim or any possible suspects were members of the group. Number eight, Glasgow. Breitbart assigns responsibility for an assault on an Occupy protester in Scotland to the American Occupy movement. He also does not note that the morning after the incident, Occupy organizers voluntarily began to disband the camp after police refused to provide security. Number nine, Manchester, New Hampshire. A woman operating out of her own home is arrested in her own home there after she tries to turn an Occupy protester into a prostitute. Number 10, New York City. An Occupy protester is assaulted in her tent. Number 11, New York City. It's the same story as number 10. They again listed it twice. Number 12, Chula Vista, California. On November 6th, a woman posted on the Occupy Los Angeles Facebook page asking Occupy to help locate her daughter, a 16-year-old named Ashley Springer. The last the woman had known, Ashley Springer was at Occupy LA, and then she disappeared. Breitbart does not note that by December 9th, Ashley Springer was home, safe, sound, and unharmed. Number 13, Philadelphia. Though the Breitbart list blares, occupier arrested for rape, the actual newspaper headline at the other end of the link says, man arrested in Occupy Philly sexual assault. The alleged victim was a member of Occupy, not the assailant, even though Breitbart implies it was the other way around. Number 14, Austin, Texas. A man in a sleeping bag near the Occupy encampment in a public square is arrested for allegedly masturbating in front of a 16-year-old. Again, despite the Breitbart headline, occupier accused of masturbating in front of 16-year-old girl. In the actual story that Breitbart links to, police do not conclude that either the victim or the perpetrator was involved with Occupy. Number 15, Chicago. A 21-year-old man named Robert Wrights, whom Occupy Chicago confirmed had attended some of its events, is arrested at his home on child porn charges. Breitbart does not bother to note that in the second half of the very story he linked to, Occupy Chicago responded to the arrest by immediately banning this rights from its encampment. Number 16, St. Louis. Again, the victim in an assault is identified as a member of Occupy, not the alleged perpetrator. And number 17, New York City. Again, the victim in a fondling case is a member of Occupy. Police identify the assailant as a neighborhood homeless person. So, 17 stories Breitbart claims are cases of rape by Occupy. Just reading the stories, just Googling the names of those identified following up on these stories, that took me only about 70 minutes. The final result. 2 cases of the stories on the list were duplicates. One story turns out to have been about consensual sex. One case in Scotland led the Occupy group to disband for the sake of safety. One case of an arrest for child porn with Occupy immediately banning the alleged perp. One case of a girl disappearing, ignoring the fact that she was home and unharmed a month later. 4 cases in which police said neither the victim nor the assailant were apparently even associated with Occupy. That leaves 7 stories, all of which show police identifying Occupy participants as the victims, 6 of which show police identifying the alleged assailants as not being Occupy participants. That is the evidence that Andrew Breitbart has submitted to rationalize his irrational attempt to smear the Occupy movement and Occupy members as rapists and to brand anybody who points out his dishonesty, his twisting of the facts, and who bothers to actually read the stories that disprove his own contention to paint them as rape deniers or rape apologists. What Mr. Breitbart and his fellow propagandists have done, in fact, is to take at least 8 women, 8 members of Occupy who were raped or otherwise assaulted, and blamed them for being raped. That he is not just perpetrating the classic fabrication con of the dishonest man for whom facts are malleable and can be ignored when they are inconvenient. More importantly, Breitbart is exploiting rape victims, blaming rape victims. And no woman, no man, conservative, liberal, or indifferent, can abide this despicable attempt to take individual human suffering and, by lying at the top of his voice, try to score cheap political points with it. Good night and good luck.